Welcome to TimeWarpCast. Thank you for joining us once again. Sit back, relax, and get comfortable. We're about to take off on another incredible journey through history. Another day, another adventure here on TimeWarpCast. Let's get started. Welcome to a special episode of our podcast series, where we delve into the life and legacy of one of America's most iconic presidents, John F. Kennedy. Today, we're privileged to have President Kennedy himself share his journey, thoughts, and reflections. Mr. President, thank you for joining us. John, can you start by telling us about your early life, your family background, and how those early years shaped who you became?
Thank you. It's an honor to share my story. I was born on May 29, 1917, in Brookline, Massachusetts, into a large, vibrant family. My father, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., was a prominent businessman and a former ambassador to the United Kingdom, and my mother, Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy, came from a politically active family. Together, they instilled in me and my siblings a deep sense of public service and the importance of striving for excellence. Growing up as one of 9 children in a highly competitive household taught me the values of perseverance and ambition. My father often said, "To whom much is given, much is expected," a sentiment that drove me throughout my life. Despite the privileges of wealth and status, our family faced its share of challenges, particularly in terms of health. I was often ill as a child, which perhaps made me more empathetic and resilient. My parents emphasized education and public service. My father's influence in business and politics provided me with an early understanding of leadership and the responsibilities that come with it. My mother's devout Catholic faith and her dedication to social causes influenced my sense of moral duty and compassion for others. Our family spent summers in Hyannisport, Massachusetts, where I developed a love for the sea and sailing, which became lifelong passions. These experiences not only shaped my personal interests, but also provided a sanctuary where I could reflect and find solace amidst the pressures of public life. These formative years laid the foundation for my future. The values instilled in me by my parents, combined with the experiences of growing up in a politically active and socially conscious family, were instrumental in shaping my path towards a life of public service.
Your education at Harvard and your service during World War II are well known. How did these experiences prepare you for your political career?
My time at Harvard and my service during World War II were indeed pivotal in shaping my worldview and preparing me for a career in politics. I entered Harvard in 1936, where I majored in government and international relations. My senior thesis, Why England Slept, examined the failures of British foreign policy in the lead-up to World War II. This work, which was later published as a book, provided me with a deep understanding of global politics and the importance of strong, decisive leadership. Harvard also broadened my intellectual horizons and exposed me to diverse perspectives. I was particularly influenced by my professors and the stimulating academic environment, which challenged me to think critically and analytically. These skills were invaluable as I navigated the complex political landscape later in my career. My military service during World War II was perhaps the most transformative experience of my life. I served as a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy, commanding a patrol torpedo boat, PT-109, in the South Pacific. In August 1943, our boat was struck by a Japanese destroyer, and despite being injured, I led my surviving crew to safety. This harrowing experience tested my leadership and resolve in ways I had never imagined. It taught me the importance of courage, quick thinking, and the profound responsibility of leadership. The war also gave me a first-hand understanding of the sacrifices made by our servicemen and women. It deepened my commitment to ensuring that America remained a beacon of freedom and democracy. These experiences instilled in me a sense of duty and honor that guided me throughout my political career. After the war, I briefly considered a career in journalism, but my sense of duty to serve my country led me to run for public office. The lessons learned at Harvard and in the Pacific, the importance of informed, principled leadership and the courage to face adversity, were the cornerstones of my approach to politics and public service.
What inspired you to enter politics, and how did your early political career unfold, particularly your time in the House of Representatives and the Senate?
My entry into politics was driven by a deep-seated sense of duty and a desire to make a meaningful impact on our nation. After the war, I felt a compelling need to serve in a different capacity. Politics offered a platform to address the issues I was passionate about, such as international relations, economic policy, and social justice. In 1946, I ran for Congress in Massachusetts' 11th Congressional District. It was a challenging campaign, but my war record, combined with the support of my family and a dedicated team, helped secure a victory. Serving in the House of Representatives was a valuable learning experience. I was exposed to the legislative process and the complexities of policymaking. During my 6 years in the House, I focused on veterans issues, housing, and labor reforms, striving to improve the lives of my constituents. In 1952, I decided to run for the U.S. Senate against the incumbent Henry Cabot Lodge Jr. It was a tough, closely contested race, but we prevailed. The Senate offered a broader platform to influence national and international policies. I served on various committees, including the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, where I was able to advocate for a strong, proactive foreign policy. My tenure in the Senate was marked by a commitment to civil rights, labor issues, and foreign policy. I was particularly concerned about the growing threat of communism and the need for the United States to take a firm stand on the global stage. These years were instrumental in shaping my views on leadership and governance, and they prepared me for the challenges I would later face as president. Throughout my early political career, I was driven by a desire to address the pressing issues of our time and to make a positive impact on our nation. The experiences and lessons learned during these years were invaluable as I prepared for the next step in my journey, running for the highest office in the land.
The 1960 presidential campaign was historic for many reasons, including the televised debates. What was your strategy during the campaign, and how did you handle the challenges you faced?
The 1960 presidential campaign was indeed a defining moment, not just for me, but for American politics as a whole. Our strategy was rooted in the belief that America needed a new generation of leadership, one that could address the challenges of the modern world with fresh ideas and a dynamic approach. From the outset, we knew that communication would be key. The advent of television had transformed the way political campaigns were conducted. Understanding this, we focused on crafting a message that resonated with a broad audience. We emphasized themes of progress, renewal, and the future, encapsulated in our campaign slogan, "A Time for Greatness." One of the pivotal moments of the campaign was the series of televised debates with Vice President Richard Nixon. These debates were the first of their kind and reached an unprecedented number of Americans. I prepared meticulously, understanding that this was a unique opportunity to connect directly with voters. We focused on presenting a clear, optimistic vision for the future, contrasting it with the more conservative stance of my opponent. The first debate, in particular, was crucial. I knew that appearance and demeanor would be as important as substance. We paid close attention to every detail, from my posture to my suit color, understanding that television was a visual medium. Nixon, who had been ill, appeared tired and less engaging, while I aimed to come across as energetic and confident. This debate was widely considered a turning point, and it helped to solidify my image as a capable and forward-thinking leader. The campaign also faced significant challenges. The issue of my Catholic faith was a major concern for some voters. We addressed this head-on, with my speech to the Greater Houston Ministerial Association, where I emphasized the separation of church and state and my commitment to represent all Americans, regardless of their religious beliefs. Moreover, the campaign trail itself was grueling. We traveled extensively, reaching out to voters across the country. I believed strongly in the importance of connecting with people face-to-face, listening to their concerns, and sharing my vision for the future. Ultimately, our strategy was to present a message of hope and progress, to use the new medium of television effectively, and to address any controversies directly and transparently. The narrow victory in the election was a testament to the effectiveness of this approach and the resonance of our message with the American people.
Your inaugural address is still quoted today. Can you share more about the vision you had for America when you took office?
My inaugural address was an opportunity to articulate the vision I had for America, a vision rooted in the principles of freedom, progress, and unity. I wanted to inspire the nation and call upon Americans to embrace a renewed sense of purpose and commitment to the common good. One of the central themes of my speech was the idea of a new generation of leadership ready to confront the challenges of the modern world. I believe that our country stood at a critical juncture, facing both unprecedented opportunities and formidable challenges. We were in the midst of the Cold War, with the constant threat of nuclear conflict, and we needed to be steadfast in our defense of liberty. In my address, I famously said, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." This was more than a call to action. It was a call for a national renewal of spirit and responsibility. I wanted every American to feel empowered to contribute to the nation's progress and to understand that we each had a role to play in shaping our collective future. Another important aspect of my vision was the emphasis on global cooperation and the fight against tyranny. I spoke of the need for a robust foreign policy, one that would defend freedom wherever it was threatened. This was a clear message to our allies and adversaries alike that the United States was committed to leading the free world and would stand firm against the spread of communism. Domestically, I envisioned a country where civil rights were upheld and where every citizen had the opportunity to achieve their potential. I was deeply committed to addressing the racial injustices that plagued our nation and believed that economic and social progress were inextricably linked. The idea of a new frontier was central to my vision. This concept encompassed the exploration of space, advancements in science and technology, and the pursuit of social justice. I believe that by pushing the boundaries of what was possible, we could achieve great things and improve the quality of life for all Americans. My inaugural address was meant to set the tone for my presidency, one of hope, determination, and collective action. I wanted to inspire a sense of unity and purpose, to remind Americans of the power of their contributions, and to underscore our shared responsibility in building a better future. That vision continued to guide me throughout my time in office as I worked to translate those ideals into concrete policies and actions.
Civil rights was a pivotal issue during your presidency. What was your approach to civil rights, and how did you work towards equality?
The issue of civil rights was indeed one of the most critical and challenging aspects of my presidency. From the very beginning, I was committed to advancing the cause of equality and justice for all Americans, regardless of race. My approach to civil rights was grounded in the belief that our nation could not truly be free until all its citizens enjoyed the same rights and opportunities. When I took office, the civil rights movement was gaining momentum, and the struggle for racial equality was becoming increasingly visible and urgent. It was clear that the federal government needed to take a more active role in addressing the injustices faced by African Americans. However, I also recognized the political complexities and resistance that existed, particularly in the South. One of my first significant actions was to appoint Robert Kennedy, my brother, as Attorney General. He was a passionate advocate for civil rights, and together, we made it a priority to enforce existing laws and protect the rights of African Americans. We faced numerous challenges, including violent opposition and deeply entrenched segregationist attitudes. A key moment in our efforts was the integration of the University of Mississippi in 1962. James Meredith, an African-American student, had been denied entry despite a Supreme Court ruling in his favor. We faced violent riots and significant resistance, but we stood firm. I sent federal troops to ensure his safe admission, demonstrating our commitment to upholding the rule of law and civil rights. In June 1963, I delivered a nationally televised address on civil rights, where I outlined the moral and legal imperative for equality. I declared that the issue of civil rights was as old as the scriptures and as clear as the American Constitution. This speech was a pivotal moment, as it marked the first time a sitting president had addressed the nation on civil rights as a fundamental issue of justice. Following this, we proposed comprehensive civil rights legislation aimed at ending segregation in public places, protecting the right to vote, and ensuring equal access to education and employment. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, which was signed into law after my assassination, was a direct result of these efforts. It was a landmark piece of legislation that significantly advanced the cause of civil rights in America. Throughout my presidency, I worked closely with civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and other activists who were at the forefront of the movement. Their courage and determination were instrumental in pushing forward the agenda for equality. While we made significant strides, I also recognized that much more needed to be done. The struggle for civil rights was far from over, but I was committed to laying the groundwork for future progress. My hope was to create a society where every individual could enjoy the full rights and opportunities guaranteed by our Constitution, and I believe that the actions we took during my presidency were critical steps towards that goal.
The Cuban Missile Crisis was one of the most tense moments of your presidency. How did you manage this crisis, and what were the key decisions you made?
The Cuban Missile Crisis was indeed one of the most perilous moments not only of my presidency but in the history of the Cold War. It brought the world to the brink of nuclear conflict, and managing it required careful deliberation, decisive action, and a profound sense of responsibility. The crisis began in October 1962, when American reconnaissance planes discovered Soviet nuclear missiles being installed in Cuba, just 90 miles from the U.S. coast. This was a direct and severe threat to our national security, and immediate action was necessary. We convened a group of my closest advisors, known as the Executive Committee of the National Security Council, EXCOM, to deliberate on our response. The initial reactions varied from launching an immediate military strike to pursuing diplomatic solutions. The gravity of the situation demanded a careful and measured approach to avoid escalating the conflict into a full-scale nuclear war. After intense discussions, we decided on a naval blockade, which we termed a quarantine, to prevent further Soviet shipments of military equipment to Cuba. This action was chosen because it demonstrated our resolve without immediately resorting to military force. On October 22nd, I addressed the nation, informing the American people and the world about the presence of the missiles and our decision to implement the quarantine. The days that followed were incredibly tense. We were in constant communication with Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, both publicly and through back-channel negotiations. The world watched anxiously as Soviet ships approached the quarantine line. Fortunately, they eventually turned back, avoiding a direct confrontation. Throughout the crisis, maintaining open lines of communication with the Soviet leadership was crucial. We exchanged letters with Khrushchev, seeking a peaceful resolution. The turning point came when we received a letter from Khrushchev proposing that the Soviet Union would dismantle its missile installations in Cuba in exchange for a U.S. commitment not to invade Cuba and the removal of American missiles from Turkey. After careful consideration, we agreed to the terms. On October 28th, Khrushchev announced that the Soviet Union would dismantle its weapons in Cuba. In return, we publicly agreed not to invade Cuba and secretly agreed to remove our missiles from Turkey at a later date. The resolution of the Cuban Missile Crisis was a triumph of diplomacy and strategic restraint. It highlighted the importance of communication, patience, and the willingness to compromise to avoid catastrophic consequences. The crisis also led to the establishment of the Moscow-Washington Hotline, a direct communication link between the two superpowers to prevent such dangerous misunderstandings in the future. In retrospect, the Cuban Missile Crisis underscored the perils of the nuclear age and the critical need for careful and thoughtful leadership. It was a moment that tested the resolve and wisdom of all involved, and I am grateful that we were able to navigate it successfully and avert disaster.
You famously set the goal of landing a man on the moon. What motivated you to prioritize space exploration, and what did you hope to achieve?
Space exploration was a priority during my presidency, and setting the goal of landing a man on the moon was a decision driven by several key factors. At its core, it was about advancing scientific knowledge, demonstrating American ingenuity, and asserting our leadership in the global arena. The space race was a significant aspect of the Cold War. The Soviet Union had achieved several early milestones, including launching the first artificial satellite, Sputnik, in 1957, and sending the first human, Yuri Gagarin, into space in 1961. These achievements highlighted the technological prowess of the Soviets and posed a challenge to American prestige and security. I believe that space exploration was not only a matter of national pride, but also a crucial frontier for scientific and technological advancement. By setting an ambitious goal, such as landing a man on the moon, we could galvanize our nation's resources, talent, and ingenuity to achieve something remarkable. It was about demonstrating that democracy and freedom could produce superior achievements compared to authoritarian regimes. In May 1961, I addressed Congress and announced the goal of sending an American safely to the moon and back before the end of the decade. This decision was informed by discussions with scientists, engineers, and policymakers who believed that such a goal was achievable with the right investment and commitment. The Apollo program was not just about beating the Soviets. It was about pushing the boundaries of human capability and knowledge. We aimed to advance our understanding of space, develop new technologies, and inspire a new generation of scientists, engineers, and explorers. The benefits of space exploration extended beyond the immediate goal of landing on the moon. The technologies developed for the space program had far-reaching applications, driving innovation in fields such as telecommunications, material science, and computer technology. Moreover, the collaborative spirit of the space program fostered international cooperation and goodwill. One of the most inspiring aspects of the space program was its ability to unite people. The image of astronauts exploring the moon was a powerful symbol of what humanity could achieve when we set our sights high and worked together. It transcended national boundaries and political ideologies, reminding us of our shared quest for knowledge and progress. Ultimately, my hope was that the space program would serve as a testament to the human spirit's capacity for exploration and discovery. It was about leaving a legacy of innovation and inspiration, demonstrating that when we dare to dream and commit to bold goals, we can achieve the seemingly impossible. The successful landing of Apollo 11 in 1969, fulfilling the goal I set, remains one of the proudest achievements of our nation. It proved that America's commitment to progress, science, and exploration could overcome any challenge and inspire generations to come.
Can you elaborate on your domestic policies and economic initiatives, such as the New Frontier programs?
The New Frontier was the term I used to describe my administration's domestic policies and economic initiatives. It was a broad and ambitious agenda aimed at addressing the challenges facing America in the 1960s and laying the foundation for a more prosperous and equitable future. One of the central elements of the New Frontier was economic growth. We sought to stimulate the economy through a combination of tax cuts, increased public investment, and support for new industries. Our goal was to create jobs, boost productivity, and ensure that the benefits of economic growth were widely shared. We proposed significant tax reforms, including a reduction in both corporate and individual tax rates. The rationale was that lowering taxes would increase disposable income for consumers and provide businesses with more capital to invest, leading to economic expansion. While the tax cuts faced opposition, they were eventually enacted after my presidency and contributed to the economic boom of the 1960s. Another critical aspect of the New Frontier was addressing poverty and inequality. We introduced programs aimed at improving education, healthcare, and housing. For example, we expanded Social Security benefits and launched initiatives to support low-income families. Education was a particular focus, as I believe that providing quality education was essential for individual advancement and national progress. We sought to increase federal aid to education and support the construction of new schools and colleges. Healthcare was another priority. We proposed the creation of Medicare, a program to provide health insurance for the elderly. Although it faced significant opposition at the time, Medicare was later enacted in 1965 and has become a cornerstone of the American healthcare system. The New Frontier also emphasized scientific research and technological innovation. Beyond the space program, we increased funding for research in various fields, recognizing that advancements in science and technology were crucial for economic growth and national security. Civil rights were an integral part of our domestic agenda. We worked to enforce desegregation, protect voting rights, and ensure equal opportunities for all Americans. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, which was a direct outcome of our efforts, marked a significant step forward in the fight for racial equality. Environmental conservation was another area of focus. We recognized the importance of protecting natural resources and launched initiatives to preserve public lands and combat pollution. This laid the groundwork for the environmental movement that gained momentum in the following decades. Infrastructure development was also a key component of the New Frontier. We invested in modernizing the nation's infrastructure, including highways, public transportation, and urban development. These projects aim to improve the quality of life for Americans and support economic growth. Overall, The new frontier was about embracing change and innovation to address the challenges of the modern world. It was rooted in the belief that government had a role to play in fostering economic growth, promoting social justice, and improving the well-being of all citizens. While not all of our proposals were enacted during my time in office, many of the ideas and initiatives laid the groundwork for future reforms and progress. The new frontier represented a call to action, challenging Americans to think beyond the present and work towards a brighter future. It was about harnessing the power of collective effort and national resolve to achieve great things for our country and its people.
How did you navigate the complexities of the Cold War, and what were your main strategies in dealing with the Soviet Union?
Navigating the complexities of the Cold War was one of the most significant and challenging aspects of my presidency. The overarching goal was to contain the spread of communism and protect the interests and security of the United States and its allies, while avoiding direct military confrontation with the Soviet Union that could lead to a nuclear war. One of the main strategies was the principle of flexible response. This doctrine emphasized the importance of having a wide range of military and non-military options available to respond to any form of aggression. It was a shift from the previous policy of massive retaliation, which relied heavily on the threat of nuclear weapons. By developing a variety of conventional forces and capabilities, we aimed to provide more credible and proportional responses to different levels of conflict. A key component of our Cold War strategy was the strengthening of alliances, particularly NATO. We worked closely with our allies in Europe to ensure a unified and strong front against any potential Soviet aggression. This included bolstering our military presence in Europe and participating in joint military exercises to demonstrate our commitment to collective security. Another critical aspect of our strategy was economic and military assistance to countries threatened by communist insurgencies. The Alliance for Progress, for example, was an initiative aimed at promoting economic cooperation and development in Latin America. By addressing the root causes of instability, such as poverty and inequality, we sought to reduce the appeal of communist ideologies and support the development of democratic institutions. The Peace Corps, which we established in 1961, was another element of our strategy. By sending American volunteers to work in developing countries, we aimed to foster goodwill and demonstrate the positive values of democracy and freedom. This program not only provided tangible assistance to those in need, but also helped counteract Soviet propaganda by showing a more compassionate and constructive side of American foreign policy. Diplomacy was crucial in managing Cold War tensions. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 was a prime example of the importance of direct communication and negotiation. Through careful diplomacy and back-channel communications, we were able to reach a peaceful resolution that removed the Soviet missiles from Cuba while avoiding military conflict. This experience underscored the need for open lines of communication, which led to the establishment of the Moscow-Washington hotline to facilitate direct contact between the two superpowers in times of crisis. Arms control was another vital aspect of our strategy. In 1963, we signed the Limited Test Ban Treaty with the Soviet Union and the United Kingdom, which prohibited nuclear tests in the atmosphere, in outer space, and underwater. This treaty was a significant step towards reducing the risk of nuclear fallout and marked the beginning of efforts to control and eventually reduce nuclear arsenals. Throughout my presidency, I emphasized the importance of maintaining a strong and credible deterrent while also pursuing diplomatic solutions to reduce tensions. It was a delicate balance, requiring constant vigilance and adaptability. We sought to project strength and resolve while also demonstrating a willingness to negotiate and seek peaceful resolutions to conflicts. The complexities of the Cold War demanded a multifaceted approach, combining military preparedness, economic assistance, diplomatic engagement, and public diplomacy. Our goal was to contain communism, protect our national security, and promote peace and stability in a volatile world. While the Cold War continued long after my presidency, I believe that our efforts during those years helped to lay the groundwork for a more stable and cooperative international order.
Outside of politics, what were some of your personal interests and hobbies? How did you balance your personal life with the demands of the presidency?
Balancing the demands of the presidency with personal interests and hobbies was certainly a challenge, but it was important for me to find time to relax and recharge. Like anyone else, I had activities and pastimes that I enjoyed, and that helped me manage the stress and responsibilities of the office. One of my favorite hobbies was sailing. Growing up in Massachusetts, I developed a love for the sea and spent a lot of time sailing with my family. We had a boat named the Victoria, and I cherished the moments I could spend on the water. Sailing provided a sense of freedom and peace, allowing me to step away from the pressures of the presidency and enjoy the beauty of nature. Another passion of mine was reading. I was an avid reader and had a deep interest in history and literature. Books were a constant source of inspiration and knowledge for me. I often turned to historical texts and biographies to gain insights and perspectives that could inform my decision-making as a leader. Sports also played a significant role in my life. I enjoyed playing touch football with my family and friends, especially on the lawn at our home in Hyannisport. These games were a great way to stay active and maintain a sense of normalcy amidst the intense demands of my political career. Art and culture were also important to me. I appreciated the arts and believed in their power to enrich our lives and society. Jacqueline, my wife, shared this passion and was instrumental in bringing more attention to the arts during my presidency. Together, we hosted cultural events at the White House and supported initiatives to promote the arts and humanities. Family was a central part of my life, and I tried to spend as much time as possible with my wife, Jacqueline, and our children, Caroline and John Jr. Balancing family life with the presidency was not easy, but we made a concerted effort to create special moments and memories together. Family vacations and weekends at Hyannisport were precious opportunities to reconnect and enjoy each other's company away from the public eye. Maintaining a sense of humor was another way I coped with the pressures of the presidency. I believe that laughter and lighthearted moments were essential for maintaining perspective and resilience. I often enjoyed sharing jokes and stories with my staff, friends, and family, which helped to build camaraderie and alleviate stress. Balancing personal interests and the demands of the presidency required discipline and the ability to prioritize. It was important for me to carve out time for the activities and people that mattered most to me, even amidst a hectic schedule. These personal interests and hobbies not only provided much-needed relaxation, but also helped me stay grounded and focused on my responsibilities as a leader. Overall, while the presidency was an all-consuming role, I understood the importance of maintaining a well-rounded life. My personal interests, hobbies, and family were essential components that contributed to my well-being and effectiveness as a president.
Your assassination was a profound moment in American history. How do you reflect on that tragic event? And what do you believe were its immediate and long-term impacts on the nation and the world?
My assassination on November 22, 1963, in Dallas, Texas, was a tragic and shocking event that had far-reaching impacts on the nation and the world. Reflecting on this event is difficult, but it's important to understand its context and the ramifications it had on American society and beyond. The immediate impact of my assassination was a profound sense of grief and loss. The nation mourned the sudden and violent death of its president, and this collective sorrow was felt around the world. The images of that day, the motorcade, the shots fired, the swearing in of Lyndon Johnson aboard Air Force One, are indelibly etched into the American consciousness. The event was a pivotal moment in American history, one that left an enduring mark on the psyche of the nation. In the short term, my death created a period of uncertainty and instability. There were immediate questions about the security of the country, the continuity of government, and the potential implications for the Cold War. However, Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson's swift assumption of the presidency helped to stabilize the situation and reassure both the American public and the international community that the government remained strong and functional. One of the significant impacts of my assassination was on the civil rights movement. I had been working towards comprehensive civil rights legislation, and my death served as a catalyst for its passage. In many ways, the tragedy galvanized support for the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as there was a renewed sense of urgency and moral imperative to honor my legacy by continuing the fight for equality and justice. Lyndon Johnson used the momentum generated by my assassination to push the legislation through Congress, leading to landmark changes in American society. The long-term impacts of my assassination are multifaceted. Politically, it marked a shift in the national mood and led to a period of introspection and change. The Warren Commission was established to investigate the circumstances of my death, and while its conclusions have been debated, The investigation highlighted the complexities and vulnerabilities of the era. Culturally, my assassination contributed to a sense of lost innocence in America. The 1960s were a tumultuous time, marked by social upheaval, political assassinations, and the Vietnam War. My death is often seen as a precursor to the turbulent and transformative events that followed, including the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy, and the widespread protests and cultural shifts of the late 1960s and early 1970s. On a global scale, my assassination had implications for the Cold War dynamics. The Soviet Union and other adversaries watched closely to see how the United States would handle the crisis. The swift transition of power and the subsequent policies of the Johnson administration reassured allies and adversaries alike that the United States remained a stable and resilient power. In terms of my legacy, my assassination contributed to the enduring fascination with my life and presidency. The image of Camelot, as popularized by Jacqueline, became a symbol of a hopeful and idealistic era. My speeches, initiatives, and the vision I outlined continued to inspire future generations. The space program, civil rights advancements, and efforts towards peace and global cooperation remain key aspects of my legacy. Ultimately, while my life was tragically cut short, the ideals and principles I championed continued to shape the course of American history. The response to my assassination demonstrated the resilience of the American spirit and the nation's ability to come together in times of crisis. It is my hope that my contributions to public service, my vision for a better America, and the legacy of progress and hope will endure long after my death.
Thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey with us today. Your insights and reflections have been truly enlightening.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to revisit these moments and share my story. Remember, our progress as a nation and as individuals is always within our grasp if we dare to dream and strive for a better future. Until next time, keep pushing forward and never lose sight of your own new frontier.